So, I've been playing Little Nightmares 3 on the Nintendo Switch 2, and yeah, I'll talk about it, why not? It's after Halloween, but screw it. Right off the bat, when a game was released on Switch 1 and Switch 2, I do want to point out some of the performance differences, and once again, I am also not some big frame rate resolution snob. A lot of these things I don't have one of those machines that analyze these things perfectly. I will just say this much because there is a demo for the game on Switch and Switch 2. And the Switch 1 version is noticeably blurrier than it is on Switch 2. As far as performance goes, I mean, I think it's fine. The thing with Little Nightmares is everything is always so dark and grainy. I can't really get a good feel for if it's like a solid frame rate the entire way through. I just know it works, and it's blurrier on Switch 1, but I ultimately, I'm playing the Switch 2 version. All right? Get that out of the way. So like a bunch of other Bandai Namco properties that I've talked about on this channel recently, I have been a fan of Little Nightmares for a while. When I first played the first game, I was in love. Of course, you get a slightly creepy game that's all in the vein of some side-scrolling platformer. Like, oh my god, I love that so much. It was so much fun. The story was interesting. The characters are so cool. The monster designs were fantastic, and there were some genuine scares and fears and just tension throughout the entire adventure, and the same goes for 2. Like, I don't know which of the two I prefer, but they're both super good and play off each other so well. I highly recommend Little Nightmares for whoever wants to give them a shot. Little Nightmares 3, on the other hand, is a little interesting. I don't know exactly why we got to this conclusion, but the original developers of Little Nightmares 1 and 2 do not work with Bandai Namco anymore and are instead doing their own thing with a new game coming out in 2026 called Reanimal that looks phenomenal, and I am so excited. When that was announced, it had seemed like we would just never get a new Little Nightmares game again. There was a mobile game, and they are trying to continue on the franchise with like a comic and even a podcast, which is crazy, and this brand new game has come to us from Supermassive Games, which they have done horror stuff in the past. They did stuff like The Quarry and a bunch of the Dark Pictures games that you can find on a bunch of consoles. Cool. This is very different than anything they've ever done before, and it's I got big conflicting thoughts with this one. So the whole thing with Little Nightmares 3 is it is a co-op exclusive game, in that you're either playing this with someone else or you're letting a CPU control the AI second character. And a big kick in the butt is that the co-op is only online. There is no local co-op. What is nice is there is a friend pass that you can download in any of the digital shops. So if you do have someone who has the game, you can play as a second player for free. That's perfectly good, but there is no local. And as far as single player is concerned, I swear every single time that there is a game where there's just an AI controlling the second character that could be a human, I don't like it. I don't think it's good. The AI is never up to snuff. It never really does what you want it to. I will say right off the bat, if you don't have anybody to play this with, even if you're a big Little Nightmares fan, it is really hard to recommend. Because on the whole, Little Nightmares 3 is definitely lesser than the previous 2 games. A lot of the stuff that Little Nightmares 3 does is just stuff that 1 and 2 did, but those games did it better. The enjoyment of this game, because I will come out and say that I did like it, was because I played it co-op the entire way through in a single sitting. I played the previous 2 games in single sittings. I had to do it again with this one, and I did it with someone else, and we did have a really good time. When you play a game that is co-op focused and you're playing it entirely in co-op, a lot of the things that would otherwise be issues that you would notice in single player don't really become as apparent. That is just co-op nature by design. I feel like you're not supposed to look at every single thing under a fine-tooth comb if you're playing it with someone else. It's just about having fun. So when you play this game in co-op, there are 2 main characters. You play as Lo and Alone. Lo has a bow and arrow, and Alone has a big wrench. I really love their designs. They have a different trait that they can do to tackle some different puzzles. There's a lot of enemies that you have to take down with the bow and arrow, and it leaves them stunned, while Alone will go in with the big wrench and smash them to pieces. And that's cool. Just having some co-op stuff in there on the base level is cool. And there are other different mechanics that do spice things up from time to time, like in the first chapter, you get an umbrella that allows you to do some interesting platforming on these big old gusts of wind. And that's fun. It doesn't last forever, because after chapter 1, it's gone and it's replaced with another mechanic, but it was fun while it lasted. There really is just some huge missed potential across the entire game on these different power-ups and over-the-top magical things that you should be capable of, but you're really not. Like, there were some really cool moments in the first 2 games with light sources and televisions and whatnot, and here, it's like you got a flashlight cool, you can do very basic flashlight things, but then you got like these mirrors that you're traversing to the different areas. Like there's a cutscene where you go into a mirror and then that's how you get to the next zone. Okay, there's nothing really extravagant about all of this. Like it's kind of mind-boggling to me that one of the main areas in this entire adventure is like a circus. It's beautiful, like I still think the art style is great, and you're not gonna do any maze of fake mirror stuff? Like, if you're gonna make the mirrors a thing in the plot, why not make it like more of a mechanic that the story adds significance to why the mirrors are a thing in the first place? Like, it's just weird. It's not fully thought out, and that's so upsetting, man. Like, the closest we get is that there are these like figurines of people that are frozen in time, and you would think to yourself, oh, surely there's going to be something very interesting with them at some point, and no, they're just there. There's like one moment that's more annoying than anything where they tried to make it scary, and that's about it. It's a big shame. But for the majority of the game, you are doing the typical Little Nightmares thing. You're going from left to right. It's a side scroller. You do have some depth. You can move forward and backward, towards and away from the camera, of course. You got some basic platforming. You got some basic puzzle solving. The big thing with the co-op now is that there are sometimes you have to push your friend over some window or something and let them handle a puzzle, and you wait for them to finish it, or you go off and do something else on your own. The puzzle design in this game is incredibly bare bones. There's a lot of block pushing, like a whole lot of block pushing, and a lot of the times the tension raises when you're being chased or something like that. The amount of beginner's traps is honestly kind of infuriating. Even though I said some of these things don't become much of an issue when you're playing these games in co-op, there are so many pits that you will just fall into because you don't know what you're doing. There were times where the tension, the areas that were supposed to be filled with tension, we both had to sit back, relax for a second and go, okay, let's actually, what are we supposed to do here? Because what jump are we supposed to do? Because we got to go this way, and then we cut left, and then we go straight. There's a jump here. And it went from just reacting in a very tense manner and working with your partner to, we just both got to coordinate our runs and jumps, and now I've already died like 6 times and I'm kind of over it and want to go on to the next thing. What the game needed after segments like that is more stuff where you can just chill with your partner and just play around for a second, you know? Like there's this one area where there's a seesaw, and I was like, cool, we can take a step back and just ride the seesaw for a second. But that's like the only time that happens. There's also not really anything in the way of segments where you're more far apart and you have to give your partner clues as to let them know when to do something else. You can do like this light whisper of a hey to call someone over. I guess if you're playing this game without, you know, being in voice chat or with them in person or something like that. But there's only one time I can recall where you as one character are stuck and you can't really do anything, and you have to manipulate the situation so the other character can move around and free you. And I think that only happens once. Basically, the co-op stuff, despite being the core focus of this game's design, they did not go as far with it as they should have, which is like a weird double-edged sword, because for Little Nightmares, do you want it to be that co-op focused, but you made the game this way? It's weird. Like the enemy designs, like the big spooky designs, sure, if you look at them, yeah, they're scary looking, of course. But because of the annoyances with some of the chase segments that you're dealing with, and sometimes you just get caught in a way that you didn't think you were going to, it just becomes a little more frustrating than anything. And like the chases were fun. There were parts still where we went, oh god, and we gotta run, but I still hold to games 1 and 2 did things dramatically better in like every single way. One of the strongest parts of Little Nightmares is the story. It's all told very subtly, though you are able to perceive what exactly they're trying to tell. Just the way they navigate things with your superpowers and who these bigger monsters are in the grand scheme of things is always very clever and ominous, and just the universe of Little Nightmares is so fascinating to watch, which is why when I see things like them making a podcast, it sounds bizarre, but I get it. There is a lot that you can dissect from this universe. The story in 3 is pretty mid. There is a primary twist, and some of the revelations are there, and it's not unclever, but it's pretty on the nose. Like, we were able to figure out what was going on like an hour into this 4-hour game. It is short, but that is kind of Little Nightmares thing. These games are always kind of short, so I'm not really upset about the length, but we did find out exactly what was going to happen, like really early on. So then when the final cutscene happened, and it was exactly what we thought we were going to be, okay. I mean, plus the ending is also kind of rushed. Like, they don't really give any kind of main antagonist enough time to shine. Man, I'm complaining a lot, aren't I? Some of these questions may be resolved in the DLC. There is DLC that is going to be coming in the future that includes 2 brand new chapters, and because I did enjoy my time with this game enough, as well as my partner I played the game with, you know, I will play those and maybe they will answer some of those questions. I don't like if questions are answered in the DLC when the main game feels as middling as it is, but if that's the case, then so be it. I have no doubt that I am also very much biased to what the landscape of co-op gaming can be in 2025. I think the peak, what every co-op game should be focusing on, is trying to get even a little taste of what a game like Split Fiction, A Way Out, It Takes Two, what that studio has been able to do with co-op. That's why I said there should be more co-op activities like the Seesaw, because those games do it beautifully, and the company that's been putting out those big games, Game of the Year nominations for every single one of their creations. Little Nightmares 3 could have been a side-scrolling equivalent of that, but they just missed the mark in almost every single way, and that sucks. Because once again, if you played this game with somebody else and you both like the Little Nightmares universe, you will still come out of this not hating it, but being very underwhelmed. And just, I don't know, if you're like me and just kind of want more co-op games in general, there's a selling point for you right there, but it's definitely lacking and underwhelming, and that's unfortunate. The Switch 2 version runs good though, so I mean, that's fine. Once again, didn't notice any issues there. And in the future, I hope they can make the best out of the situation and continue on the franchise and either go back to single player, which is where this franchise kind of thrives a little bit more, or make co-op an option with some extra side mode or whatever. Like, that could be the future of Little Nightmares. The games are short. Like, once again, this brand new one, 4 hours long. Maybe make a new game that you can tackle the campaign 2 different ways. One as single player, one as co-op. Figure out how the story works with that. I don't know, but if you've been watching this channel for a while now, you know I've been reviewing a lot of Bandai Namco games because their output has been pretty ridiculous in 2025. Kudos to them. There's been a lot of fantastic games this year, but yeah, this is one of their weakest, and that sucks. That really sucks to say for Little Nightmares. I'm still glad I played it, but it just makes the anticipation for Reanimal that much higher, because that's by the original studio, and that game will be great, and this is just kind of a little stopgap before we get to it. Like, it's to a point where if you've never played Little Nightmares before, but you're interested in playing this one first because you just have a co-op partner that would be interested in playing the game with you, you can play this game first, because there's really not much going on based on, there's like 1 or 2 things that would be amplified if you played the first 2 games, and that's about it. So this, yeah, I don't know, man. It feels weird. I haven't complained about a game like this to this extent in a while. So it's unfortunate, man. If you are interested in picking this game up for yourself, consider using my link down below to go over to Video Games Plus and pick the game up, as well as potentially the other Little Nightmares games if you want to catch up. I would appreciate it. Like, dude, even one of the costumes you can get for Low and Alone are just Dark 6 costumes, 6 being the character from the first game. Like, everything is just trying to remind me of Little Nightmares 1, which, God, it's the better game. But let me know what you think of Little Nightmares as a franchise. If you play Little Nightmares 3 yet, single player or co-op, maybe my perception of single player is way off and you had a good time. I'd be curious to know. Let me know down in the comments. God, Reanimal is going to be so good, you guys.